But anyway, yeah, you were mad you weren't on the Predator episode.
I was. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean,
yeah. What else do you have
top
for favorites? We're gonna have to work you in
at
some point to pick up.
Well, you put me in front of any Arnold movie, I'm down.
Any Arnold, okay,
I'm down.
Cool. Okay, well, hey, this movie's basically like the Predator, kind of the same, right?
The aliens are so mean in this film.
They're so mean.
They just want to kill everyone.
This movie's like almost the opposite of the Predator, except for. We'll talk about it. Let me introduce the podcast first. As you guys know, I don't know how to start the podcast yet. So it'll either be just starting it, I guess, which often works the best, or something along the lines of, welcome to Late to the Movies. My name is Ben Holt, and this is a podcast where my friends and I get to fill in our movie blind spots. Every week we'll pick a movie that either I or guest hadn't seen before and really should have gotten on a spaceship and left your family forever by now. The movie this week, as you maybe could tell from that tease, is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Steven Spielberg's 1977 sci-fi classic, his follow-up to Jaws, a really important movie that I don't feel like gets talked about a lot when you're talking about Spielberg these days. But we're going to talk about it a lot today. Before we do that, though, my guest, your guest, left to right, sure, across your podcast aisle, we got Anthony.
Ben, I think we need a bigger boat. No, wait, it's the wrong movie.
Oh, so close, 2 years off.
Ben. We are not alone.
There you go. Well played, and thank you for being here. Before we get into the movie, though, you're a guy who watches a lot of movies. Have you seen anything good recently?
Honestly, not too much. Not too much. It's just been pretty busy, and I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty.
There you go.
I've gotten really into that. I don't know why. I feel like I'm 12 again, but
yeah,
I did watch this film called Hunger. It's
I don't know.
It's a Thai film on Netflix.
Okay.
It's similar to The Menu with Ralph Fiennes, but it's all in Thai, and it's about this like mega egotistical chef.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
This other young woman chef who's like just cooking noodles in a restaurant in Thailand. She gets recruited to join his team at this exclusive restaurant, but the guy's just a total lunatic, and the film is super dark.
Yeah.
But she learned some life lessons along the way, and it's really, really a really weird film. But I thought it was pretty good.
Good.
It's on Netflix too. Check it out.
Yeah. I don't know anything about it, so I'll put that on my list.
I couldn't tell you who was in it.
That's fine.
Yeah. No clue.
Yeah, I've seen very few Thai films. I think Pitchapong Weerasethakul is from Thailand. But
I was talking. My brother said that RRR is really good, and I should watch it, but I just haven't watched it.
Yeah, I loved it. It is. I mean, who are we to talk as Americans? Like, you can see over there my copy of Top Gun Maverick. Nice. You know, a lot of action movies are pretty nationalistic. This one is too, and maybe that doesn't work for you. But if you can just watch it as an action movie, I don't want to support Lockheed Martin, but I liked Top Gun Maverick.
Right, of course.
Yeah, it's a hell of a time. It's so inventive, and it's doing some stuff that you're like, oh, I've never seen that before.
And he said it's just constant action.
Constant.
Never ends.
So many great set pieces that the characters are like the two main guys are super charismatic. There's multiple songs in it, which the first one doesn't start until like 45 minutes in. You're like, I didn't know this was that kind of movie.
Right. Really, I also watched this show on Netflix called The Night Agent. I was just watching some random. It's like Jason Bourne.
Is Hiddleston in that?
No.
Who is it?
That's the night manager or something
yes,
like
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is the night agent. I was
gonna have to Google.
It's kind of like Jack Reacher meets Jason Bourne. It's this guy. He's like a secret agent, but he mans this sort of night phone in the White House for like special occasion.
That's pretty
mission type things. And It's a whole conspiracy type thing. I
like that.
It was just mindless. A pretty good series that you can binge.
Hey, it works.
Yeah.
I watched in theaters yesterday Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, nice. How was it?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
It's okay. So yeah, a quick, if you don't know, the Evil Dead movies, Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, they're come out from the 80s into the early 90s. Then big gap. In 2013, there's a reboot by Fede Alvarez, which I think is really good, but it's a lot more serious than those first three movies. More in line with the first movie, which isn't as much of a comedy as the second and third. But even the first one has a little goofiness to it, just from starring Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, it's Bruce Campbell, right?
Yeah. But the 2013 reboot takes itself really seriously until like the last half hour, which is really good. And then this one is definitely not a comedy like Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness is, but it's goofier. And I think I liked the vibe more. And the 2013 one is maybe more successful just as a horror movie.
Right.
But as an Evil Dead movie, I think this one's probably better.
Yeah.
But I like both. I like all the Evil Dead movies, so maybe I'm
Is
not
Bruce
the right kind of
Campbell in
ask.
it?
No.
Oh.
No. It's all new people.
Okay.
All new people. They're kind of making a case that it's a different book. There's like 3 books of the dead, and like it's the original 3 movies had one. The 2013 one had a different one, and then this one had a different one. It's sort of what they're saying, at least.
Right. Okay.
That's not the book lore isn't a big part of it. People turn into deadites, and the thing that makes it like the first ones is that they're back to just like fucking with people, just cause.
Right.
Which is what deadites should be doing. They're just messing with people.
You're right. Yeah.
It's
right.
great.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the show Burn Notice?
Only a little bit.
I mean,
I know
it's
he's
not a good
Bruce
show,
Campbell's
but
in that, right?
yeah, Bruce Campbell like makes the show as the comic relief. It's so good.
One thing that is interesting about this movie is that like a lot of the people in it are children, and so that's a new dynamic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a new dynamic. It's,
Like, what do you mean by children?
it's usually like young adults, but these people are explicitly like
10.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a kid who's I think like 8 or 9.
Gotcha.
There's 2 teens. One's probably like 16 or 17, and one doesn't have their driver's license yet. So like probably 15 or 13. I know.
So they're really setting up for a new franchise.
Well, Evil Dead movies, not a lot of people make it through.
That's true, right?
But so I don't want to give a spoiler in one way or the other.
Okay.
So I'll just say that a lot of it seemed like that with the end of the 2013 one that they were setting it up, and they were supposed to. There's a Bruce Campbell tease at the end credits of the 2013 one, and that nothing ever came
I thought he was
from that.
supposed to come back.
They were supposed to. The movie's like in development hell.
Gotcha.
And now it's been 10 years.
Right.
But yeah, I liked it. There's some good stuff in it.
Did you get to
Some
see the
great
movie?
fan service, some good callbacks, some great homages.
Oh, really? That's good.
A few homages to The Shining, for sure.
Right. Nice.
All right. Well, that sounds good too. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I had seen it before, but I don't think I've revisited it probably since I was like a kid, and my mom was like, "Hey, you should watch this." It was kind of like, here's the thing I liked when I was a kid, around your age, and I was like a teenager or whatever. Maybe you'll dig this, and I did. And but I don't think I really revisited it since. So, but I am counting that as having seen it before, and you had not.
I've never seen it. I've only seen the end. Like
Very
the
famous ending.
last 10, 15 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, very famous ending when the mothership gets there and the synthesizer with the light board. But so pretty successful when it came out. It's a big deal. It's a lot of people's favorite Spielberg movie. Screen Drafts, I talk about other podcasts on here all the time, so I'll just mention one I don't think I have before. Screen Drafts had a Steven Spielberg series of episodes where they were ranking every Spielberg movie. I think it lasted like 4 or 5 episodes because there's just so many. And there were some people on it, and how it's I won't explain Screen Drafts because it's too hard. But anyway, Close Encounters came up really high, and people were speaking like really passionately about it. So this was one of the movies I revisited around when those podcasts were happening, was also when we were shooting stuff out of the sky. And so this movie and Signs, which we're not doing this month, were the reason that I wanted to do Watch the Skies month, which is the theme, all the alien invasions and encounters.
The original title of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, is it?
Is Watch the Skies, yeah.
I did that on purpose. Here's the reveal at the end of the month.
Welcome.
It was all leading up to this. That would make sense.
I can't believe you didn't know that, yeah.
Let's see how much research I didn't do. So it's you probably thought that's why I named it this.
I did. I was like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
The culmination.
The culmination. I'm glad we're doing this one last because it is a culmination of a lot of the themes we've been talking about. But before we get into it too deep, do you want to give us a 1-minute plot summary?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Great. Go for it.
All right. After a couple unexplained UFO sightings combined with 2 World War II planes being discovered in the desert in perfect condition, weird things start happening in rural Indiana. Roy Neary, fresh off of hunting sharks, investigates several outages and has a close encounter himself, obsessed with finding out what's going on. Roy loses his wife and family, just going mad, insane. Simultaneously, scientists discover the sound pattern and realize coincides with the notes. They discover the sound pattern. They realize it's a longitude and latitude for Devil's Tower, Wyoming. Roy and the woman whose son gets abducted by the aliens, or his first, Jillian, they watch the same train wreck. They both head to Devil's Tower. They all make their way there. The government tries to stop them. A giant game of Simon ensues. The aliens reveal themselves to be friendly, take Roy aboard the ship along with a bunch of other cool astronauts, and fly away.
You went 61 seconds on the dot, so unfortunately disqualified for going over. Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. So I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, but I want to keep it on the focus of what the podcast is actually about. What did you think seeing this for the first time?
I mean, this movie is a game-setting movie for science fiction films. Basically, that's what it really is. It makes sense to me why maybe our parents' generation really loved this film. And if you go to the movies in 1977 after you see this Star Wars, does this come out before or after?
It got pushed back, so I think it comes out. I think Star Wars is summer, and I think this is fall.
Right, okay. Along with some other Jaws and a lot of 70s style themed movies coming out like that, you realize seeing this in the movies in 77 must have been a massive cultural impact, similar to maybe what War of the Worlds was on radio in the 30s.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I was just double checking. But yeah. So yeah, Star Wars is the summer, and then a few months later, November, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And altogether, quieter movie on the whole, right, but with some real like bravura sequences.
Yeah.
I love this movie. This movie's great. And it is so sort of strangely structured in a way that it is kind of an ensemble movie. I think, the cultural image of it is Richard Dreyfuss,
right?
And him, with the mashed potatoes making the Devil's Tower and stuff. But it starts with François Truffaut and Bob Balaban out in the desert, and it's probably more screen time for the stuff happening in Muncie, Indiana, with Richard Dreyfuss and his family. But it's not that much less time spent with the scientists and the government people.
Yeah, it's two simultaneous stories going on at the same time.
Yeah, so structurally, I think it's pretty interesting that there's this really domestic story of a guy trying to like be believed. And you wouldn't normally have, even before he's on screen, yes, that's happening. As the audience, that he's right the whole time.
Right.
So it's sort of this interesting thing. And the scientists, they're in more of like a procedural story, like obviously different subject matter, but I think of like Spotlight, and it's just you're seeing professionals doing their job, and that's like what they're doing. And so it's just such an interesting dynamic to swap between here's these competent guys getting this thing done, doing this huge scientific breakthrough, and then let's go back to Richard Dreyfuss, and he's going insane and driving his family away.
The blue-collar utility worker.
Yeah.
Trying to read a map in a truck at night.
Yelling turkey at guys who pass him on the highway.
Yeah, turkey. It's so Midwestern.
But all that being said, there's a great build, and there's so many amazing sequences in this movie that it feels... we'll probably not give them all credit in the next 40 minutes, but I love how the movie starts. It's so sort of mysterious, I guess, out in the desert. Yeah. You see the planes. It's like, they haven't changed at all.
Yep.
They went missing. What do they say, like 1941 or something?
Yeah. I think the backstory is the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
They went missing in.
Yep. And then you go right to another place, the characters that you never see again. It's like the control center where there's some sort of like, test mission being flown.
Right.
And you never actually see what the pilots are seeing. You're just with the guy at the the control console, which I think is a cool concept. It probably saves a lot of money too.
And he says, do you want to report a UFO sighting? And you're like, no, not really. Yeah.
No, thanks.
I like the sound effects of like, you sound like you're at a McDonald's drive-thru,
And you're just watching this guy looking at the radar screen and the other guys who like come and stand around him as this is happening.
Yeah.
And it's still a really exciting scene.
Yeah.
But you're just watching these guys sitting at a desk. And then you see Richard Dreyfuss and his family.
It's amazing how young he looks. I mean, obviously, right? But
He looks, the beard in Jaws, and then going no beard for this, it looks like a whole different
It's a totally different guy.
It's a totally different guy. And the personality is so different, too.
I think he really is an alien.
Yeah.
And they brought him back off the spaceship just for this film.
I know. It's a whole different vibe from the dude, too. Right. His character in Jaws would be one of the scientists. Is basically Bob Balaban.
Exactly. Right.
They look pretty much the same.
Right.
But the Roy Neary character in this is kind of like, I mean, he's right the whole time.
Yeah.
But he kind of sucks also.
He's an allegory for the working class man in middle America.
Yeah, yeah.
No one believes me.
Yep, yeah. The government's railroading you.
Yeah.
And it turns out they are.
But they are. They've been planning this the whole time.
They're fully aware of what's happening.
It's
not even like, I need to make these people believe. It's like, oh, they know a lot more than you do.
Right.
They know you're right.
Right.
But it's better for them if you think later on in the movie there's some kind of like airborne thing that we all need to leave Wyoming for.
Right. They've already planned this. I think they even planned the original pilots getting abducted in the first place. They already knew about that.
Yeah. They're well aware of a lot of things that are happening. And this is probably a good time to talk about every movie that we've done, all 4 we've done this month, have a very strong distrust in the government.
Yeah.
And are like not even really subtext. Very much in each of these 4 movies is the government misleading people.
Yeah.
Arrival, it's not as much of a lying, it's just no one trusts the government.
Right.
And they're doing weird stuff and the soldiers are squirrely. But then the other 3 movies are explicitly someone in the government lying to a main character, which is just, something that...
But you have to. That's the theme of alien movies.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely what's going on. It's what makes
them work. Right.
A lot of the anxiety happening back in February when we were shooting stuff out of the sky every day.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a weather balloon.
Yeah, sure it is. Joe. Talk about the president, obviously. So, yeah, it's good. Did you like it, this movie?
I really enjoyed it, yeah. To your point about the scientists, it just reminds me of every... they're just so straight-laced and like kind of stiff, and all the government people, they look exactly the same. The military uniforms just reminds me of a lot of the films from that period. And some of the Air Force guys and the top brass reminded me of the character from Twin Peaks, the major. Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That totally makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously this movie came out before, so a lot of those films are just borrowing from it.
Yeah.
And it's Spielberg, so you get a lot of E.T. themes, you get a lot of that stuff, just borrowing from himself.
Yeah. It's as if like if Elliot had gotten on the ship with E.T. and left his family at the end.
Right. It looks like E.T.
Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, this is like the same.
Kind
is
of
that the same alien?
Plasticky thing.
Right.
Yeah. I mentioned before that François Truffaut is in this movie. He's a hugely important figure in international is what I just said. Cinema, leading figure of the French New Wave, made 400 blows. He's a big deal. This is his only acting role in a movie he didn't direct. Must have just been a fun time for Spielberg to have this iconic dude on set.
Right.
I think he's really good at it. It just seems worth calling out individually.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned that this is sort of like I forget what you used, like a summation kind of a movie for sci-fi that put our parents' generation on this track.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good example of what Spielberg does so well throughout his career of sort of synthesizing his influences and then also making something that ends up being the format for a type of movie kind of going forward. He makes 1941 after this, which doesn't necessarily do that, but Raiders of the Lost Ark is the movie after that.
Yep.
And that is all his, the radio dramas he grew up on, the radio serials, he grew up on. And then also every action movie since is like trying to do that. And yeah, I think there's a ton of overlap in this movie with sci-fi before and after. But yeah.
Crystal Lake, Jason
is Crystal Lake. Yeah,
he's living there.
He's living there.
Yeah. So the aliens put Jason at Crystal Lake. One of the utility workers mentions, "Oh, the power's out at Crystal Lake," and I was like, Easter egg.
Easter egg. And just a few years later, they'd find out why.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I'm like, oh, we took the wrong guy.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think. I don't know why we're so Spielberg obsessed. This is our 6th Spielberg movie.
Well, he's a good director.
He's a good director.
He's
he
not
made a lot
bad.
of things.
Yeah.
It's kind of impossible after Fabelmans to not see every movie in the lens of like, ooh, how did he feel about his dad and his mom at this point in time? But yeah, so the domestic stuff, which is kind of the next part of the movie that we get to plot wise, takes a lot of that. Teri Garr as the put upon wife, pretty underserved by this, but I think she's great.
Spielberg, I read that he cast her because he saw her in a coffee commercial.
Oh, wow.
In a 30-second spot, she had such a wide range of emotions on selling coffee. He's like, I got to have her in this film.
Yeah, it's kind of a thankless role.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of it, but like, you know, in her defense, she's really just like, come on, just like don't be, come on, please,
She's
don't
like,
do this.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed by you.
Yeah. It's
Stop
not
throwing plants in my house.
It's like she's kind of doing like a stereotypical nagging wife thing, but it's also like, I mean, anyone would be nagging this guy to stop destroying their home.
Right.
But
Spray some tan on your other half of your sunburnt face so it doesn't look too obvious.
Yeah. So the first night they get the call that he has to go find this place that he gets lost looking for. And a really amazing sequence happens. I love that the car comes up behind him and you see the headlights, and then it goes around him and like yells at him, like, stop blocking the road, you jerk. Yeah. And then lights come back and he doesn't look up and he just sort of waves them around. Right. And then the lights lift up and go over the car.
Over him, right.
That sequence is awesome. And it's not one of the like, I think really just the finale gets pulled out and put in like clips and montages of, best movies of the century, sci-fi movies, whatever. So you probably hadn't seen like any of this stuff before.
None of it.
I think that's a really effective sequence when he's in his truck.
And we've talked about this on other podcasts also, but just the cinematography and for being the 70s, right? Today we take it for granted, but having to do this essentially by hand, mechanical or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I don't know if he's on some kind of like boom and it's just like the cab of it. It's probably not actually a car. Right. But it must be tipping him back or something for the gravity thing.
It just sets the stage so perfect. Whereas today would be all computer animated, and you just obviously didn't have that at the time. Yeah.
Right. Not even my favorite sequence from the movie, but I think it's awesome, and it like gives you a real early thing. I like that it's not. So, like I said, I watched this and Signs at the time, 2 movies I revisited for the first time in over almost 20 years. And in Signs, there's like some like nibbling around the edges and stuff, but eventually they kind of get to an arrival place of like, oh, these lights are up in the sky. We know this. Right. I love in this movie though, really early on, they're like, the government knows this is happening. And this is very explicitly happening to Roy also. Right. And to other people who are seeing these lights and stuff.
Yeah, because they're all gathering on the hill, waiting for it to come back. And oh, surprise, it's a government helicopter.
Yeah. It's so great. And it's almost goofy, but I think it still works how like the mailboxes and the railroad crossing sign are just like, shuddering, flying back and forth. It's great. And I think Dreyfuss is great in this whole movie. And I think he's awesome in this.
I mean, he's just a great actor. It's something I think maybe for our generation, we kind of forget about him in some sense, but because we think of maybe Jaws first and foremost.
One thing that I guess we're doing a little out of order, but it's very separate at this point, is Barry and his mom, the little kid. Yeah. This is the first time you see him, and it's just this time it's just all the toys turning on and the lights and stuff going, and I think their fridge gets raided. Yep.
Which is like that reminded me of Ghostbusters a little bit. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Ghostbusters. I also thought of E.T. E.T. goes in the fridge.
Right, yep.
Yeah. It's the stuff that happens with Barry, and Barry as the kid, he's always like on board with these aliens. Yeah. He's pretty happy to see them. He says toys when
he's curious, yeah.
Yeah, when the scene that happens later, they actually had someone offset like shaking
that's how they got him to smile. Yeah,
that's how they got him to smile. Toys is unscripted, but it works really well in the movie.
Oh, that's not in the script?
No, he just said toys because he's a literal child 3 years old and saw toys. It works though. But for the mom, like it's all
poor distraught mom.
Yeah, it's just nightmarish. Right. But this opening scene, he just sort of runs out into the not really the forest, just the fields, and that's how later he almost gets hit by Richard Dreyfuss, who is now following these lights after seeing them.
But you never get the sense that this is a horror movie.
No.
It's not like a horror film. Yeah.
No, you don't. And I forget who gets there first. I think Barry gets there first because obviously he has to swerve to avoid him.
Right. Yeah. Barry's on the crest of the hill. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's this hill that we come back to a few times, and there's just a few hippies there now. And Barry's there. The mom's there. He almost gets hit by Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss jumps out of the car. And then...
Hey, watch out.
Yeah.
I think he yells.
They don't even really talk then. He just runs over. He's like, are you all right? And then everything flies by. And like I said, I like that they're just like, yep, we're not going to... this is the guy that made Jaws, but we're not going to really beat around the bush here. Here's what they look like.
Yep.
And, it's a good sequence. Then there's like a police chase.
Well, what's funny, because like I like that police chase because it's the old style police cars with the single light on the top, and they're like chasing after some 1930s robbers, running down the street. I thought that was very kind of nostalgic for me.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I just like that sequence. They go past the toll booth, and the guy's like, "Hey, come on!"
I think that one of my favorite lines from that scene was the sort of farmer guy sitting on the. He's like, "Oh, they do circles around the moon, but we got them beat on the highways."
Yeah,
I think he says something like that. I thought that was that was kind of funny.
Then eventually they fly off into the sky, but one of the cops just yeets his car off a hill.
Yeah.
Hopefully he didn't.
Yeah, no, that's Keystone cops over here. Which way are they going? Oh, off this hill. Let's go.
Yeah, not smart, these guys.
Rural cops.
Yep. Then Roy's all hyped up when he gets back home. He makes the kids all get in the truck and stuff. And I think this is a nice moment, actually, for Teri Garr when they're there. And there's like, obviously nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And I think she has a line that's like, don't you think I'm taking this really well?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Which is a great line.
Yeah.
And, so she's still trying to make lemonade at this point out of this situation.
She's like, why'd you drag me out of bed for this?
But of course, it's a Spielberg movie, and this one's also about divorce. Eventually.
Well, they just disappear.
Yeah.
Never come back.
Nope, they don't.
They're gone.
They don't revisit.
She's taking the kids to her sisters, and that's it.
Yep. They'll later see on a news report that her husband went on a spaceship and is gone forever. Then we cut back to the scientists. They're in a desert and they see a big shipping ship. I don't know how to put it. And it's in the middle of the desert. I like that the UFO news back in Muncie is just fully in the paper. It's like, a bunch of people saw something.
Yep.
It's great. And Teri Garr's like cutting it out because she's like, I can't let him see this shit.
Right.
He's going to go crazy. And this is the first time you see him like looking at a pile of something and kind of molding it. It's when he has the shaving cream in his hand.
Yeah. And then the pillow too. He also looks at the pillow.
Yeah.
But as he's laying on the floor, he's like, something's not adding up here. But he thinks that the aliens had implanted that image in his brain. And that's why he becomes so obsessed with finding out what that is.
Yep. So for you, as there's a lot of times you're seeing him and then Barry's mom. I'm forgetting the character's name, but
Jillian,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. She's doing like illustrations.
Right.
He's doing sculpting. Did you guess that was Devil's Tower in Wyoming?
I had no idea what Devil's Tower was until I looked it up and I was like, oh, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Right.
That's, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot else to do in Wyoming aside from look at like national parks and stuff, which obviously you can do.
Jackson Hole is a pretty cool place.
Yeah. Not a shot on Wyoming, but
right,
like I think if that's the kind of thing you're into, then it's probably a great place for that. But I always thought Devil's Tower looks really cool.
Yeah. Well, if you go I went on the Wikipedia page for Devil's Tower, and that's like the #1 claim to fame. Tourism like quadrupled after this movie,
Yeah, they probably get a lot of weirdos too, because it's an alien thing.
Right.
Poor Devil's Tower National Parks employees.
But I also read that for Spielberg, because he wrote this. Well, who's the original scriptwriter?
I don't have it from.
And then he didn't want to give that guy any credit after his multiple rewrites, and they sort of had a little bit of a falling out. So then he just took the credit for writing the whole film. But Spielberg's twist on it is that this film's supposed to be sort of like the story of Moses and Devil's Towers, Mount Sinai, and the aliens are gods, and we got to climb up the Mount Sinai to reach, heaven, whatnot. I read something like that. It's one of the themes of it.
There's a lot of allegory in the movie still. If you want to look for it, it's not that much of a stretch to get there.
Right.
If that's how you want to view it.
Yeah.
That all makes sense. And I mean, yeah, Devil's Tower is just such a striking landmark to have this stuff, and it's named Devil's Tower. Right. So like that all you can bring your own baggage to that kind of thing. Roy gets fired.
Would never happen today. He's probably a union guy. Would get paid on
it's like
never would happen.
Because I guess he never went to the power outage to fix it.
Right.
But it's one time.
Yeah. You're fired.
Give the guy a break. He's like, oh yeah, I mean, if you look at his face, you're like, well, something happened to this guy.
Right.
He's been bamboozled in some ways.
Instead of going to that outage, you're getting a tan.
Yeah. Then we're with the scientist team. I'm just calling them like the science team again.
Yeah.
And they're in
the Men in Black.
Yes, the northern India, where the people are singing the 5 tones that they heard from the UFOs.
Yep. That was a funny scene too. That reminded me of the sort of like the last scene in Mad Men when he's thinking about the Coke ad. That's what image I thought of.
Except these people come by it genuinely. They're not like super rich guys at like a California rehab retreat.
Exactly.
But it is very similar. And just the scale of it is like a lot different because there's so many people in this scene.
Right, yeah.
And hearing them all singing those 5 tones is pretty cool.
But then they ask, well, where did you hear this from? And they all just point up to the sky.
It's just suited. I mean, it's Spielberg, right?
Right.
And he's in his bag a lot in this movie, but it looks incredible. Yeah. And then you cut to it's like a lecture or a symposium or something, and there's the guy who's like looking at the camera weird that's playing it back for the crowd.
Yeah.
And Truffaut's at the podium, and they're doing I know it's a specific kind of system that the hand signals are from, but I don't have the name in front of me.
Yeah. They show it on the screen briefly. I didn't write that part down. But then he has a funny line where he says "Parlez-vous français," and no one laughs because they're all a bunch of
government spooks.
Yeah, see, exactly. G-men.
And I like that he says, like, we don't know what this is, but we think it's important.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple times that so they're working off of the sounds, and then Jillian and Roy are working off of the visual.
Right.
And Roy also says when he's making it, like, I don't know what this is, but I think it's important.
Right.
And so I like that they each have different pieces that they're working with. It's just good.
Well, there's the scene where the guy who speaks French, he's like, well, before I spoke other languages, I used to read maps.
Cartographer. Yeah.
This is a longitude and latitude.
Yeah. That's coming up soon, but it's like, okay, I mean, I know you guys aren't also former cartographers, but like somebody should have guessed. Maybe we see if these are coordinates.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But hey, it gave Bob Balaban something to do besides translating for
That's
Truffaut.
Another cool thing about watching these old movies today is that can you imagine there's no GPS. You have to actually read a map. I find that kind of funny.
Yeah, I agree. So next is Roy goes back to that hill in Muncie.
Yeah.
And Jillian and Barry are there. Now there's a bigger group there too. And he goes over to Barry and he sees that he's making like not exactly a sandcastle, but he's making a mound.
Right.
He's also has this image that he's trying to work out. And both Roy and Jillian are like weirdly entranced by it.
Right.
And this is when he says, I think this is important. And then the lights start coming and everyone's like, oh, here they come. And the hippie that was originally there, I think has like stop and be friends or something on a sign or stop and make friends. And it's just the government. And already the government's like, you crazy people, go back to your homes, get out of here.
Nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah. And I mean, you didn't jump ahead that much. After that's when they're in the thing. And I like that sequence too. They get the huge globe.
Right. Yeah. Roll it down the hallway. Where you going with that globe?
Yep. Yep. I keep mentioning Bob Balaban as though he's, as famous as Richard Dreyfuss, but he's also, like Dreyfuss when we did Jaws, been in a movie. He's the narrator in Moonrise Kingdom, is Bob Balaban.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't look that up.
And as a character actor, he's in a million other things.
Right, yeah,
but just like stuff we've done, he's the narrator in Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah, you don't... For me, I never really know who that guy is, but then when you look him up, it's like, oh.
Yes, I've seen at least like a dozen movies that he's been in.
He's just sort of in the background.
Yes, this is like probably one of his bigger roles, and he's still, you'd say, maybe like the fifth or sixth lead. And they find by looking at it that it's in Wyoming. They've been taking the 5 tones and sending them up to space and getting this sequence of numbers back.
Right.
And yeah, then that's where you're going.
But also to the scene, one of my favorite scenes is when they're having the press conference and they invite all the visitors in, and the Air Force guy is like, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a flying saucer." He just puts the picture down, and then he throws the plate. He's like, "This is what my kid threw in the air, and I took a picture of it."
Yep.
And so stuff is so easy to fake. Yeah, we got it all under control. You guys are just imagining things.
Yeah, and there's Roy's like, dude, like, no, we know it wasn't people throwing plates.
And Jillian's like, they took my son.
Yeah, my son's literally gone.
He's gone.
She's being treated as like a National Enquirer style,
right.
Loony.
Yeah.
And she's not helping herself that much either. But I mean, she's a distraught mother who lost her son, and everyone thinks like she did something to him or she's lying.
Right.
Right after the Echo Deep Space Station radio telescope sequence where they find it's Devil's Tower in Wyoming, is the wonderful sequence where Barry gets taken. He's doing the tones on the xylophone is how this sequence starts. And when we did Jurassic Park, I said that the T-Rex attack scene is the best sequence in American action movie filmmaking. I think this sequence is just about on par with that.
Yeah.
I love this sequence so much.
When they take him out of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
through
good.
the doggy door.
And like you said, it's not a horror movie, but this is like, I mean, this M. Night Shyamalan steals this wholesale for science.
Yeah. I thought that watching this movie, I'm like, this Signs obviously ripped this whole thing off. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not the only one. And I don't think Shyamalan would be shy about admitting that. He's got a lot of perspective.
No, I'm not saying they're the only ones, but it's so obvious. Yeah.
But yeah, this is right up there for my favorite Spielberg scene in any movie. It's just so good. It's kind of like, I can't really, describe it too much, but I love when he opens the door and he's like the lights coming through and she runs and closes it. And
right. In the clouds.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
It's really terrifying. The appliances start going off on her.
Right.
It gets kind of poltergeisty when all the appliances are going.
Like the screw and the floorboard very slowly coming up, and then the steam explodes through the vent. Yeah.
It's just good shit. It's one of those things where like we get to a point where I'm just like, if you haven't seen this movie, just go watch it. The sequence is great. I don't really want to just describe it's an action sequence. I don't want to tell you beat by beat. Just see it yourself. He gets pulled out through the doggy door.
Right.
She tries to pull him back in. She's not strong enough.
Nope.
And I love that just like the clouds recede and it just goes back to normal.
Right. Yeah.
And she's just left there. And then like you said, the Air Force is gaslighting everybody.
Right.
And then it's the old hippie guy's there, and he starts talking about how he saw Bigfoot, and the government's like, perfect.
Yeah, right.
Everyone's
this
guy.
Kook. Yeah.
We're going to highlight this guy in the news report about this.
I saw him.
And then they're right after they're lying to everyone, saying like, it's no big deal. You cut to a huge amount of manpower is being deployed.
Yep.
I think it's the first time you see I guess astronauts, if you want to say that, like the special team of people in their red suits.
In their red jumpsuits.
Yeah, that are like getting, you find out later being prepped because the government already knows we're going to meet these people and we're going to do a little exchange.
Right.
And I like that. It's probably some, something subtextual there that it's all like Baskin Robbins and different, commercial trucks and stuff that they're disguising
they're trying
their
to hide
vehicles
it.
as. And then, it's not subtext. It's just they're pretending that there's like an oil spill that happened, and now there's like an airborne toxic
There's an
thing.
airborne toxic thing, and then there was something about water contamination. Maybe these wells are contaminated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they had, there's a scene there where they're deciding what the lie is going to be, and they're like,
yeah.
just do it all.
Yeah, and the guy's writing it down with his pen. Right, yeah.
And they do. So meanwhile, Roy is getting weirder, and he is now has turned his train model set into a huge thing that's he's making out of like dirt or whatever.
Yeah. And trash.
In
the garden.
Yeah, in the garden supplies.
Yeah, the plants. You're going to love it.
And then that's when Ronnie takes off.
She's going to her sister's.
Taking the kids, going to her sister's. We do not see
Never
them
again.
again.
Yep.
It's very funny.
Never again. No,
it's really like halfway point of the movie.
It's right smack in the middle.
Yeah.
It's right smack in the middle. It's like an hour and 10 minutes in.
You do not see those people again.
She's gone.
Very funny. And then he sees the news program. Both he and Jillian.
Yeah, at the
it's one of those things. You're like, people like there wasn't the internet. They were all watching TV, and there was only a few channels.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yes, there's a train wreck near Devil's Tower, and they show, and he's like, that's it. Yep.
But and they're playing the soap opera about. I forgot the line there. I should have wrote that down.
Yeah, there's something
like something wrong with Darcy or something like that.
Yeah.
And as he's finishing building this giant sculpture of Devil's Tower, it's like it's sort of setting the stage like this guy's lost his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get another commercial for Budweiser, similar to the Top Gun episode. Yeah. Here's a nice beer ad in the middle of Close Encounters, the king of beers.
Yeah. But the whole sequence where he's like going he's just weird, and the neighborhood is all like
Mrs.
crowded.
Morris,
So,
Mrs. Harris.
Yeah, and the chickens are all getting away because he's taking the chicken wire, and the whole neighborhood's just watching him do this stuff. He's throwing stuff through the kitchen window.
Right.
And again, like Teri Garr kind of in like the sort of archetypal nagging wife role, but it's like, what else was she supposed to do?
No, right, yeah.
She makes the right choice.
Yeah.
Because, like, based on the information she has, this guy is dangerous and is destroying their house.
Well, earlier in the movie, when he's trying to explain to her what he saw, when she's in bed, he's like, "Oh, I saw something last night I can't explain."
Yeah.
And then she goes, "I saw something last night I can't explain," referencing him going mental, you know?
Yeah, she's good, but again, we never see them again. He sees Devil's Tower, and then we're into like this section of the movie is like pretty different.
Yeah.
Because now it's not that it's a road movie, but there's a decent amount of business for between now and him getting to the site where they're going to meet the mothership. And
I think some of this maybe doesn't have to necessarily be in the film.
Yeah.
I understand why it's in there, and like the interrogation scene and stuff like that. But I mean,
and you're seeing like the huge crowds of people trying to leave, and they're
train,
like, you know, the people who are like selling the gas masks and the train. And even through all those people, fortunately, he does meet up with Jillian, which is great.
It's fate, yeah,
it's fate. And they take off, and they have, Arrival does this too. They have the bird, right?
And, the pigeon, right, yeah.
Yeah, and Arrival has like the canary in the coal mine type thing also, which is obviously this, you know, from mining. It's not necessarily from this, but once they get to the government encampment, it looks exactly like the government encampment in Arrival.
Yeah.
But this is all good, and that they're like, oh, you come with us, and they get taken in, and the interrogation scene where Roy assumes he's being like arrested, but these people are kind of testing to see what he knows.
They want to know what he knows, right?
They're not necessarily against him, but it's not like they're gonna, you know, take him with them.
At this point, the movie says, "Well, we already know that you know all this stuff. We know that you're right. We've been planning this the whole time, so maybe we can just use this guy as a guinea pig."
Yeah,
right. I think that's what they're trying to set up for. But I just think some of that, even though this movie is a good movie, I don't think it's needed.
No, but this is the first time when our two stories are intersecting.
Exactly, yeah.
And then Roy, Jillian, and some guy are in a helicopter with all the other people who are like Roy, have seen this thing and are coming, and they all still have their gas masks on. And the government's like, okay, get in this helicopter. And obviously they're just going to take them away.
Yeah.
They're probably going to return them to their lives or whatever. They're not going to arrest them.
Right.
But they don't want them around for this.
Yeah, right.
And I do love that as they, you know, the three people, Roy, Jillian, and some guy, They run away and they take their gas masks off when obviously the area they were in was staged. And if they get to like the quote unquote backstage area, no one's wearing masks.
Right.
They're all just whatever.
Right.
And they start running up the mountain.
Yep. But first,
the other guy doesn't last very long.
But first, my favorite scene in this whole film is we see Carl Weathers stop Roy.
Yeah.
And he questions him before he goes on mission to hunt the predator.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Yeah.
I was like, it's Carl Weathers. I didn't know he was in this. That was amazing.
I watched this like over a week ago. I don't remember Carl Weathers.
Remember Carl Weathers? He questions Roy when they're in the town and all the people are trying to escape the town. Yeah. And Carl Weathers says, "Oh, we have permission to shoot on sight if we catch any looters." This is before they show the pigeon in the cage when he's putting it in the car.
He's credited as military police.
Yeah.
So yeah, makes sense.
Yep. He's wearing the same outfit that he fights the predator in.
Yeah. See, I had I bet you didn't know this guy was there moment coming up, but it wasn't Carl Weathers.
It wasn't Carl Weathers?
No,
Action Jackson? Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you're totally right. I just completely left my brain. They start climbing up the hill. The government's obviously trying to stop them. They could have tried harder, I feel like. They're kind of like, they have other priorities at this point.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying about this sets the stage for every sort of alien movie. The government is kind of incompetent. They're competent, but incompetent at the same time.
Yeah, that's fair. And they start getting gas. There's sleeping gas being deployed by these helicopters.
Which I read is another sort of theme to this film. Just like sleep.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, dreams and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, there's a dreamlike quality to a lot of what happens.
Yeah.
Or maybe Spielberg, much like John Carpenter in They Live, last week's episode, is trying to say, wake up, people.
That we're being
government wants you to be asleep
every day, right? Yeah,
government wants you to sleep
because he gets gas and he falls into a deep sleep.
Yes, yeah. But Roy and Jillian, they keep going, they keep making it, and now there's a lot of business with them climbing this mountain.
Do you think that's filmed on location? No,
I don't think so.
It did cost $19 million for 1970s. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
But it just looks kind of like it's in a stage.
Part of it, I feel like when the actors are interacting like directly with it, it's got to be stage and matte paintings and stuff. But I think there's some real footage of Devil's Tower for sure.
Yeah, right.
But I could be wrong on all that.
I didn't look that up.
I don't think any of it looks bad.
Yeah.
I think it's all pretty cool.
No, I think for the 70s, I think it looks really good.
Yep. And they crest like the part of the mountain. Obviously, they don't go over the top of Devil's Tower. They go like sort of around the base.
Right.
And when they crest like the sort of, hill, I guess you'd say, they can look down and see this whole staging area for the visitation.
Yeah. Getting ready.
And they go down there and no one really stops them. And, and then Roy's like a featured part of it and everyone's cool with him.
Yeah. It's like, oh, here he is.
Yeah.
Our secret weapon.
Jillian lags behind a little bit, but she also makes it there eventually. Yeah. And then this sequence is one of the most famous in movie history. So this part you had seen at least clips of before. Yeah.
And also, too, I mean, as little kids, right, we all had the game Simon. And this is the game Simon, even though it came out after this film. But
yeah. And he and the guys, and they wait. And here it comes.
I think even the sounds are the same as Simon.
It must be.
Where's your recorder? Can you play that on your recorder?
I should have, right? I mean, it's right here.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Pretty close.
Excellent.
Pretty close. That was first try.
If I disappear later, we'll know why.
Yeah, it's because I called him in.
You called him in.
But it seems like you can choose to go or not.
Yeah, right. They're very friendly. Yeah.
But this whole sequence is great.
Yeah.
And famously, James Lipton and Inside the Actors Studio mentioned to Spielberg, your father was this computer technician, or
mom was a composer.
Mom was a composer, concert pianist, and then to communicate face to face finally with this other species, they play music, with a computer.
Yeah,
and that's how they communicate.
Right.
And Spielberg's like, I didn't mean that at all.
Yeah, no.
Cool though. I hope that was like something in there, but I mean, whatever. It's a cool thing anyway. Good job, James Lipton.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. So, yeah, the sequence is incredible. It's so good.
And Truffaut is like you speed it up, slow it down,
Yeah.
faster, faster, faster. Yeah,
Yeah, and then it just starts popping off.
yeah.
And all the lights on the ship are going.
We're playing the keyboard,
Yeah.
the synth. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's like a drop ship, and the mothership's sort of above still.
right. Well, those 3 ships that originally come in, I thought the look of them is very cool, but one of them looks like a sort of like a smiley face, and it sort of flips upside down, and then the 3 of them they take off. Then that's when the mothership comes in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, you're totally right. So this goes on for a while, but it's sort of like why would we describe it? You should just see it. You can watch this on YouTube.
Well, I mean I think the last 20 minutes is on YouTube for sure.
For sure, yeah.
But without going too much into it, you do get sort of entranced into this final scene
it's
because
amazing.
even Dreyfuss is acting on it, and he's like the smile that comes across his face.
Yeah,
it reminds me of when we did Citizen Kane. It's sort of like it's a callback to his childhood. It's like, oh, this is a wonder, and it's such an experience. It reminds him of being a little kid, the curiosity, the mystery. I get to see aliens, and then a smile comes across his face, and he forgets that his wife and kids have left him, and he's destitute for the rest of his life.
Yeah, exactly. It's
his Rosebud.
It is, yeah. For a lot of people, when you think of Spielberg, you think of like this look of wonderment that characters have when they're looking at something, the act of like observing.
Right.
And that doesn't really happen in Jaws so much. When people are looking at things in terror more.
Yeah.
But this obviously has a lot of that.
Right.
You're just looking at different characters, including Lance Henriksen. That's what I was going to say. Lance Henriksen's in this scene.
Which one is he?
He looks a lot younger than he does even like in Aliens, which isn't that far after this. Yeah. Aliens is what, 84 or something?
Yeah.
So it's less than 10 years later, but he's already like full Haggard mode by Aliens. He's just one of the guys. His name's Robert, the character is. So he's in the background during the interrogation.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
And then, when it's like panning around to different people,
yes.
And he looks like 30 years younger than he does.
He looks
in
way
Aliens.
different. Yeah.
Aliens is 7 years later, but
that shot. That's also a good shot when you just looking at the crowd. It's just a panorama of the crowd.
Yeah, and it's all these people with this look of wonderment, and they're
all frozen.
It's frozen. Fucking powerful as hell. There's not a lot of dialogue here. The communication's being done through the synthesizer.
But Jillian's taken about 3,000 pictures on her.
Yeah, that's right.
1970s camera.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for her, she's like, people need to believe me this time. Fuck.
But then all of a sudden...
all the people come off the ship. When
But another favorite scene of mine from this film is that as the 2 pilots are coming off and they're sort of like interrogating them, like, what's all do? Are you vaccinated for diphtheria and smallpox? And he's like, do you remember your birthday? And he's like, yeah, December whatever.
Yeah.
And then the scientist puts the black tape over his picture because he's dead.
Yeah.
Right? To the rest of us, the public, that guy doesn't exist.
Pretty much, yeah. He's a ghost.
Yeah.
I do like that bit when they're like, oh, I guess you're part of this now too?
Yeah.
So let's run you through like the crash course.
Yeah,
and,
right, right.
You're going with these people who are obviously super highly trained.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be,
here's you're own
good.
Red jumpsuit.
Yeah. I mean, and it's good too. It's like, I don't know, like you need like a regular Joe on that ship to give like the layman's perspective.
What if they have an electrical outage? You got to have a guy to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, those guys won't know what to do.
No clue.
It's a real like Armageddon style. Like we got to we got to send these guys who know how to get stuff done.
That is a real Armageddon type scene.
Yeah,
because they have the jumpsuits with the American flag on the shoulder, and like we're going up, we're saving you.
Yeah, not these pampered fancy astronauts. We need someone who really knows how to get stuff done.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that anyone says that, but it just makes me think of it. And the pilots come back. The Barry's back, the little kid.
Yep.
And then the aliens come out and they're like, oh, we're into this guy.
Yeah.
At Roy.
They go down the whole line.
Yeah.
Stop right at Roy. You come with us.
You've got the childlike wonderment that we're really going to appreciate in our spot.
Yep.
And they pick Roy. Roy goes on the mothership.
No, he wanted to go. He wanted to go.
There was no hesitation.
First second. Yeah.
I guess he doesn't know, but like the science team and the other people there will know, like, those pilots that just got back, they were gone for like almost 40 years.
Right.
No one's seen them for like 35
but
years.
they didn't age.
But they didn't age.
Yeah.
So I guess they're like, Roy will figure it out.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
Comes back 40 years later. His
do
wife's dead. His kids are all estranged.
Do you think that this is the second time around? Like, do you think that we, in the context of this film, the scientists have already traded once before?
You think they were responsible for the pilots already?
Yes.
Back in time?
Yeah. And this is
they just seem so confused when they see the planes at the beginning. But that could just be like they're here kind of thing. We didn't know they'd pop up here, you know?
Right. That's the way I took it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense too. I think you can read it either way.
Yeah.
But there's only one possible way to read Roy leaving. That's just Spielberg didn't have kids yet. And he said if he had, he wouldn't have ended the movie like that.
Right. Just take off. Yeah.
I like it, though. I think it's in keeping with the character. That guy's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
He's pretty selfish.
He just loses his marbles, too.
Yeah. It makes him perfect for these aliens.
It's kind of like, I guess there's no redemption for him. He just sort of disappears. But I think the ending works because then there's the swap. The aliens we discover are friendly. They do the little not the hand signal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the most, it's very like 50s sci-fi movie style of like alien costume. It's just kids in plastic masks, basically.
Exactly.
Very little green men.
Yeah.
Although they're kind of bluish, grayish.
Yeah.
And they bring Roy on the ship in the special edition, which is a version that Spielberg made 3 years later, where there's a reshoot that only Richard Dreyfuss is in, and you can tell he looks 3 years older, and the clothing is more baggy and stuff. And it's actually him on the ship. It doesn't really work that well.
No, you just can't go redo a movie like that.
It adds some other good scenes, and the other stuff that's good is preserved in the director's cut, which I think comes out in the 90s. But the ending is the same as the theatrical, which is really, really hits for me.
Yeah.
And then the whole time, the music, the John Williams score really crescendos at this point.
Yeah.
The ship's taken off, and throughout the credits, you can see it like getting further away.
Right.
And it's a great ending.
Now, did John Williams do the 5 notes too? That's
yes. Apparently, he gave many, many, many options to Spielberg.
Really?
Yeah. And then eventually, obviously that is the main driving force of the score. Even the orchestral score is doing the 5 notes.
Yeah.
Great notes. Among our best in movie history.
It's the game Simon. It's the same notes from the game Simon. I swear the first 5 sequences is the exact same thing. It has to be.
Yeah.
I'm only doing it out of memory, but it's got to be. I'm going to go buy a Simon later this afternoon and
you got to figure it out. Yeah. It's kind of fascinating. Obviously being born 14 years after this movie came out.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine, but this comes out just a few months after Star Wars. And it's very different ideas of sci-fi.
Yeah. But delayed, as we said earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Supposed to come out before.
Right.
Or probably around when Star Wars.
Columbia was going out of business.
Yes. This becomes the highest grossing film Columbia had ever had at the time. Makes over $200 million in 70s money worldwide, which is, it's a success for sure. The kind of sci-fi you're getting at this point, and then a couple years later is Alien. So 3 very different ideas of space.
Yeah, true.
And obviously this is all in the wake of 2001, the movie, not the year.
The Space Oddity.
Yeah. Star Wars, not so much in conversation with that, but Spielberg constantly in conversation with Kubrick throughout his career.
Yeah.
And I think Alien, as obviously the computer stuff is a lot taken from 2001 also. So yeah, good movie.
Oh, great film. Really a foundational piece.
Yeah.
It should be, everybody should obviously watch this if you're into films, movies, and sci-fi, especially sci-fi.
It's a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
You're going to like it.
Yeah. You look at the major blockbusters, alien movies of the last 20 years, Men in Black, Independence Day, it's all taken from this film in many ways, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the ship from Independence Day.
It almost looks the same.
Yeah. It's a good looking ship. It's the model they used for it's in the Air and Space Museum and the Smithsonian. Obviously not. It's a scale model. It's not the same size.
Oh, it's not bigger than the White House?
No.
Oh. I was lying. See, the government's lying to us all the time.
All the time. But yeah, the Independence Day ship does look a lot like this mothership here. And so I've been asking a few questions for every movie that we've done this month.
Yep.
Except for Arrival, because I hadn't come up with the concept yet. But I feel like it's something I should do every time. I have like some, connective tissue between the episodes instead of just sort of lip service to connective tissue. So what would you give the aliens in this movie to either foster harmony between our species or to get them to go away?
In this film, the aliens are definitely, they're trying to foster some type of relationship.
Yeah.
1,000%.
What would you give them?
I would give them, I would crack open a nice cold Budweiser for them. Say, here you go.
Here you go.
Take this.
Tastes like America.
Yeah. This is what you want to, this is what freedom tastes like.
You may be more advanced than us, but do you know
Take your fancy face-burning ship and have a cold one, will you?
Yeah, I'd give them sunglasses,
Yeah. Figures, yeah.
Like, if you guys are going to be here maybe for a while, and if any of your ships come, you're going to want these sunglasses.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot out there in the desert.
Yeah. They definitely have a different light tolerance than us. Like, just take these sunglasses. And this is, like I said earlier, I think it's one that we, not you and I, but like our aged people don't really think of as much.
No, not
Spielberg, you think, Jaws, Jurassic Park,
yeah,
stuff like that. And this isn't as loud as those,
yeah,
either culturally or like in the movie. Like you said, there's a lot of slow parts. But I think it's a pretty incredible movie.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For me, Spielberg, it's number one is it's Jurassic Park. I mean, that's really the culture-defining movie of his for me.
When I rewatched E.T. last year, it was a lot better than I had remembered.
Sure, I can see that.
Not just in terms of quality, but how much it affected me. But
yeah,
I mean, I cry at movies.
Yeah,
easier maybe than I should, but it's
E.T.'s a tearjerker, of course.
It happens. Not in this one. It's more like a celebratory sort of like ecstatic moment of like revelation at the end kind of thing. And I'm checking to see, because we're going to move into ratings, I'm checking to see what I gave this last time I watched it, because I want to preserve that.
As I was watching this, I'm thinking, what am I going to rate this? I needed something iconic from this film as a scale to rate. And I came up, I have the best. I think I have the best one. But
I'm excited to hear it. Well, let's set it up. Every week we'll take our ratings and I'll put them on Letterboxd. Every week we'll take ratings, but I'll put them on Letterboxd once every 6 months or so. But you can find those ratings and our archive of previous ratings on letterboxd.com and look for Late 2 the movies. That's the number 2. On a scale of, I think we can only go as low as 0.5 to 5 on any scale of your choosing, going up by halves, and you can't use stars, what would you give Close Encounters of the Third Kind? It would be a good one to use stars on, but you can't.
Yeah. I give this film 4.5 cymbal clapping monkeys.
Nice.
Out of 5.
Nice. When you said symbol, I was like, is it going to be close to mine? Like symbols of, Devil's Tower or something?
No, yeah.
I give it 4.5 mashed potato towers.
I love it. I love it.
5.
That's a good one, too.
This movie fucking rocks.
Yeah.
Just go watch it.
Yeah. The mashed potato scene is obviously another iconic scene, too. It's so funny because it's so 70s, too. They're drinking milk.
Yes.
And mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
That's like,
no one does that.
I feel like that's like a childhood dinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone's going to be really heavy that night.
Yeah. Well, and are those real mashed potatoes? It's probably instant mashed potatoes because it's the 70s. Yeah.
It's the 70s.
No one's making mashed potatoes in the 70s.
Yeah. Dreyfuss is great in this movie.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And
his top 3 films are Jaws,
Close Encounters,
and What About Bob?
There you go. I was going to go with Krippendorf's Tribe, but
I've never seen that.
It's extremely one of the worst aging movies ever.
Really?
Yeah. Ariel, you couldn't make that one today, and it's not from that long ago.
Right.
And it's from not that long ago to the extent where you're like, you probably shouldn't have been able to make that movie then either.
Oh.
Anyway. Yeah, well, let's get out on a high note. I love this movie. Thanks for being on the podcast.
No, yeah, thanks for having me and making me watch this movie. Otherwise, I would have never seen it. So I think great film, really trend setting, foundation setting.
Yeah. You couldn't do Predator, but you got this. You've gotten Citizen Kane out of this podcast.
That's true. That's right. Yeah,
it's been pretty good.
A bunch of callbacks on this one.
For real. I later today I'm seeing Beau is Afraid, so look out for our next episode.
Who's in that?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
It's the new Ari Aster movie.
Yeah.
He made that's definitely not how you pronounce his name. He made Hereditary and Midsommar.
Yeah.
And then also I'm trying to get better at like remembering people like to plan things. Next month is May. It's 5 Mondays. It's gonna be 5 episodes.
Ooh.
So for a 5 Monday May, it's Music Month.
Music Month.
Music Month May. Not musicals. But movies that are about or heavily feature music. Ones that I'm confirmed so far that we're doing include Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, Scott Pilgrim vs. the Worlds, Josie and the Pussycats. They're not all going to be comedies, though. There's going to be some sad stuff. I haven't decided on the last two. Probably like Inside Llewyn Davis, maybe like A Star is Born or Whiplash.
Yeah.
So we got to get some dramas in there, too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Excellent.
And now, for the first time ever, I've actually properly teased the next episode, which might be Walk Hard, unless I can record something else first. Have you ever seen that?
Which is also a callback to what this film is. Another theme, progress. Maybe the aliens teach us a few things. We come back, new technology.
I learned a lot from this one.
All about progress. Yeah.
All right, Anthony, thank you for being on.
Thanks.
You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Podbeans. You can email Noah at late2themovies_podcast. No, wait, late2themovies_podcast is our Instagram. Late2themovies@gmail.com is our email. Late2themoviespod.fireside.fm is our website. I usually get everything else wrong, but if you go to that website, you can find the proper links to all those places. All right, thanks. And now we're getting in the spaceship and going away forever.
Goodbye.
Didn't even say goodbye. He was just like, later, y'all. And that's how I should end every podcast. Later, y'all.